private sector leaders. So as the world seeks to fight poverty and respect fundamental human rights, girls remain nearly invisible to those in positions of power. And yet it is only through major and sustained improvements in the condition of girls that the world will reach its goals. Beyond economic outcomes, improved governments and healthy societies depend on an active and engaged citizenship. A thriving civil society comes not only from increased aspects of political awareness and social awareness, but also from the average citizen's participation in all aspects of political life. Girls, as well as boys, must be adequately educated and trained to prepare them for later economic and civic life, and young women must be given adequate opportunities to contribute and to participate in this public life for change to take hold. It is critical that girls' contributions remain productive. Girls' welfare today shapes the prospects for future families. It should be so obvious that the health and educational achievement of future generations is directly related to the physical and intellectual condition of today's girls and young women who will bear and prepare the children of the next decade. Most importantly, girls matter because they're human beings. Girls have equal rights to human dignity, self-determination, freedom and violence, good health from violence, good health, education, and participation in economic and political life. And we're failing. Although a precious asset for the present and future, girls in developing countries are in trouble. Girls and young women are generally less educated, less healthy, less free than their male peers. They face systematic disadvantages over a wide range of welfare indicators, including health, education, nutrition, labor force participation, and the burden of household tasks. Because of deprivation and discriminatory cultural norms, many girls are forced to marry at very young ages and are extraordinarily vulnerable to HIV, sexual violence, and physical exploitation. Lacking a full range of economic opportunities and devalued because of the gender bias, many girls are seen as unworthy of investment, even when it comes to food, and which is fed to the boys instead of the girls, the protein, or even for protection by their families. Isolated and unsupported, these girls have little voice to demand their rights, and as they move into marriage, early marriage and childbearing, the cycle continues. The poorest and least developed countries tend to have the largest shares of young people in their populations, and it is the girls and young women who face the greatest disadvantage. A sixth of the world young people live on less than $2 a day, including 12 million girls in sub-Saharan Africa who live on less than $1 a day. Few poor girls have an opportunity for education in sub-Saharan Africa. For example, only 17% of girls enroll in secondary school. Girls bear a heavy burden of the work, particularly in rural areas where they carry the water, collect the firewood, care for the young, and tend to the livestock. 1 girl in 7 in developing countries marries before the age of 15, and nearly half of all girls in the poorest nations marry before 18. The next set of observations some might feel are too disturbing, but that is precisely why they must be discussed. Early childbearing is closely correlated with poverty. Girls from poor households are 3 times more likely than better off girls to give birth during adolescence, and they bear twice as many children. Nearly half of sexual assaults worldwide are against girls ages 15 and younger. And girls aged 15 to 19 in developing countries are also at a particularly high risk for physical and sexual violence. During adolescence, many of these young women may also be subjected to female genitalia cutting, forced marriage, sexual exploitation, and discriminatory property and family laws. Around 59% of HIV-positive adults in sub-Saharan Africa, which is the worst affected region in the world still, are women, and 75% of infected youths are girls aged 15 to 24. In many places, HIV infection, ironically, is higher amongst married girls than their unmarried counterparts. Unwanted pregnancies are disproportionate among young unmarried girls who often lack access to contraception procedures and carry a high risk of death. In Ethiopia, more than half of the maternal deaths among women under age 20 were found to be due to abortion. 1/4 to 1/2 of girls in developing countries become mothers before age 18, and 14 million girls ages 15 to 19 give birth each year. Adolescent girls are up to 5 times more likely to die from complications of pregnancy than women in their 20s, and their babies are also at a much higher risk of death. The highest fertility rates, of course, are then also amongst the adolescents in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, where more than 90% of the maternal deaths occur. By virtue of their age and social position, girls' opportunities and prospects are fundamentally shaped by those closest to them, particularly family members, mothers, fathers, other male relatives, mother-in-laws, husbands. But the actions within the often hidden domestic circle are affected by the policies and resource allocation of national and local governments, donor agencies, as well as by civil society and the private sector. We can all help. The cycle of neglect of girls' rights, poor health, education indicators, meager economic options, and the generation-to-generation transmission of poverty can be broken by focused investments in girl-directed policies and programs that meet girls' needs. So let's talk just for a moment about a few concrete statistics that demonstrate the magnitude of the economic effect of the girl. I promise only a few more statistics. According to our World Bank research on the economic impact of educating girls, if Ethiopian girls all finish secondary school, they'd add 6.8 billion to Ethiopian GDP over their lifetime. If all the girls in Kenya completed secondary school, they'd add 27 billion to Kenyan GDP. If all the girls finished secondary school, they'd add 22 billion to Bangladeshi GDP. The 4 million adolescent mothers in India cost the Indian economy 383 billion over their lifetime. If young Nigerian women had the same employment rates as young Nigerian men, they would add another 13.9 billion in annual GDP. The numbers are pretty staggering. Over the entire 14-country study, adding one level to the average girl's education would raise the country GDP by 1.5% per year. There are 600 million girls ages 10 to 18 in the developing world. Of the 130 million out-of-school youths in the developing world, 70% are girls. Each additional year of primary school adds 10 to 20% to the wages of a girl in the developing world. Each additional year of secondary school adds 15 to 25% to the wages of the girl in the developing world. And I love this statistic, so I'm going to repeat it again later. When a woman in the developing world earns income, she spends 90% of it on her family, whilst a man in the same world spends only 40% of his income on his family. Which brings me to a program, and some good news, is that there are some solutions to these problems. Educate girls globally. And more good news, we can start with another short video.
Foundation to educate girls globally is driven by the belief that this needs to change. In rural Rajasthan, the inequality between male and female literacy is particularly acute. Many parents do not see the value in sending their daughters to school and prefer to arrange an early marriage or keep girls in the home to work. In addition to these cultural barriers, many schools don't have a single female teacher, or even separate toilets for girls, so it is hardly surprising that communities see school as an unsuitable environment for developing girls. This inequality and marginalisation in the school system leads to continued inequality and marginalisation in future communities, a worrying cycle. From their base in Bali village, FEGG mobilises communities to take ownership over the development of their schools. Staff travel to villages and work directly with community members to empower local leaders, address attitudes that prevent girls from enrolling and remaining in school, and create an infrastructure for positive and lasting change. School development management committees are supported in introducing girl-friendly infrastructure into schools, such as female toilets. By improving the quality of education and creating girl-friendly environments, communities can begin to see school as a worthwhile and accessible place for their girls. FEGG enriches the learning experience in government schools by introducing creative learning techniques. Teachers are trained to create more inclusive, supportive, and engaging learning environments for their students. Regular pre- and post-tests clearly show the effectiveness of these teaching methods. Life skills games are introduced to Balsabar girl councils to develop confidence, self-awareness,